Welcome to the Sciata Cyber Insurance Podcast, the show dedicated to helping brokers and agents master cyber insurance. We bring you top-tier experts from across the insurance and cybersecurity industries to help you better understand today's cyber perils and protect your clients from them. Now here's your host, Kingsley Flynn.
To the Sciata Cyber Insurance Podcast series. Our featured guest today is my good friend, Scott Burns of Excess Brokers. Over the past few years, I've enjoyed the opportunity to engage with Scott on business. Plus, a recent bonus for me was spending time with Scott and his wife in Asheville, North Carolina a few weeks back. So that was great fun indeed. So welcome, Scott.
Thanks so much for having me.
Great.
A lot of fun in Asheville for sure.
Our interview today will focus on empowering agents to understand cyber risk and how to effectively produce this specialty business. In simple terms, how to sell it. This will prove a great learning event for agents, as Scott will break this topic down into easy-to-understand tips agents can put to work. I'm certain many agents will agree there is sometimes too much information out there to digest. So let's kick things off with the tail of the tape on Scott. Scott is a vice president of professional and management liability at Excess Brokers, a growing national independent wholesaler. Throughout his career, Scott has been dedicated to educating agencies on the importance of cyber exposures and the need for comprehensive cyber insurance coverage. He is passionate about helping clients navigate the rapidly evolving cyber risk landscape and is committed to providing tailored solutions that meet their unique needs. Over the last 10 plus years, Scott has helped his agency partners write thousands of cyber policies. So again, I'm very pleased to have Scott with us today. So let's get right to it. Scott, first question, what are some of the common challenges faced by agencies you work with when selling cyber insurance policies, and how can they be addressed?
King, it's a great question, and I just want to say I'm thrilled to be here with you. The things that we focus on in helping educate our clients, we understand at this moment, there are a handful of things that are really dogging our agency partners. The cyber landscape is one that is consistently changing. Coverage forms are expanding and then shrinking. Appetite is expanding and then shrinking, and pricing has been all over the place. A year ago, if a quote expired, I told our agency partners to expect an increase if they asked me to refresh this. Some of the other things that we really want to help our agency partners in is just being able to speak with a little bit of confidence on the subject, understanding, hey, they're not going to know everything. And if they're not in the weeds of selling cyber policies every single day, they really need to rely on their experts. That's finding a good wholesale broker or finding a good underwriter and leaning on those individuals who live and breathe cyber insurance. One thing that I'd really stress is that the more you do this, the more comfortable you'll get. Those are really good places to jump off.
So, Scott, is it fair to say that sometimes an agent will wade into the cyber marketplace, get confused, scared off, and then you never hear from them again? So you have to kind of hold their hand to walk them through the gauntlet.
And King, that's something we do all the time, and I really encourage our partners. Don't get discouraged. Do this time and time again. Your competitors out there are going to be offering this coverage. And the more you speak about it, the more comfortable you'll get, and then the more your clients will become aware.
Good to know. Let's move on to another topic. So, Scott, do you have a strategy to help agencies market cyber insurance policies to their clients?
Yeah, so King, we meet with so many agents, and the conversations that I typically have with them are like, "Hey, at this point, I'm sure you're aware of this exposure. Maybe you offer it on a once in a while basis, um, but for us, there's typically not a clear process for an agency, um, and not a clear process on how or when they offer the coverage." They know they can be doing a better job. From where we sit, I really encourage our agency partners. Hey, like you should be offering cyber liability to every one of your commercial accounts. And for us, we try and show them, hey, it's not painful to get these indications. It's not painful to start a conversation with your insureds and say, hey, we're not just trying to sell you another line of coverage. We think this is really important, and why? And this is why. And for us, it's obviously it's leveraging the Sciata platform. It's showing our partners how quickly and easily they can get time. They can get terms at their desk, because we know that every agency has time is a valuable asset, and they're all stretched too thin. We really encourage our partners to, hey, let's start by getting a price point for an insured, so that they can decide, hey, this is in my budget or it's not, and this is how we can further that conversation with awareness. King, you and I know how hard it is to get an insured to complete an application upfront for a line of coverage that they've never bought in the past.
Yeah, definitely some hesitation there. And you mentioned earlier, agents should be offering cyber to all of their commercial standard line clients. And so to the extent you're able to help them through that process, I think that's a big value that you bring to the table.
King, you've been doing this a long time. I've seen the claims that come in for this line of cover. It's a nightmare. And for our agency partners to not offer this coverage, I just think it's foolish at this where we're currently at in this climate. It's a moment where this is a must buy, must offer coverage.
So you reference claims. So how can insurance agents help their clients understand the value of cyber insurance policies? And clearly, claims is right up there.
Yeah, you know what, and again, this is what we really try and talk to our agency partners about is managing and dealing with a cyber claim is a full-time job. It is extremely difficult to navigate all the regulations, laws that come with what happens when a cyber event happens or occurs. I don't know how a small business can function and operate their business while navigating a cyber claim. From where I sit, the value of these policies is not just writing the check. It is having that team that's built into all of these companies that comes in and helps you get whole, helps you resolve the crisis that your organization is in. For us, it's become easier to sell these policies because insureds now, it's not just these big headlines. It's one of their competitors or it's their neighbor who's dealing with a cyber breach. It's very rare that we run into an insured who has not experienced somebody close to them having a cyber event. What I love about the proposal pack that we get from the Sciata platform is that, we show our clients industry-specific claims. So claims that are relevant to insureds in their industry. And the other thing that I think is really, really meaningful in this moment in time is that the claims we're seeing are primarily first-party claims. It's much easier to sell a policy when you tell an insured, it's not your clients they're after anymore. It's your money. It's for me, it's a much more compelling case. And then the other driver that we think really is going to help push cyber to all of the commercial risks that hits an agent's desk is a contract requirement. As we go through, and as more and more businesses grow and grow, there are fewer and fewer vendors and partners willing to operate with an insured who does not have cyber liability. As a business grows, this request will become much, much more prevalent.
So we're seeing that trend of companies mandating really their clients carry some level of cyber insurance. And in terms of some of the ones I've looked at, the limits might sound skewed way too high for a tiny company, but that is the reality, right? Many small companies have to maintain cyber insurance for limits that you and I might say probably high, but that's the reality of the world. And that, coupled with the fact that some carriers have perhaps reduced their capacity, makes your job a little more complex in that you might have to place primary and excess or find markets that'll write higher limits.
You're absolutely right. But that's the everyday job of a cyber broker, and what we do, and when we partner with our agents, is try and get an understanding of what these needs are, what these requirements are. Often an insurer will try and negotiate that limit down, because you're right, King. Some of these limit requests are astronomical. Not to say we can't get those limits. We can. It's a little bit more complicated, although I think, we're starting to see that ease a little bit.
So let's move over to some underwriting considerations. And I think part of the cyber landscape that does scare agents and then ultimately the end clients is what the underwriters are requiring. They hear a lot of terms thrown around. So in your opinion, how can agents stay up to date on the latest cyber threats and trends? And how can they incorporate that knowledge into, we'll say, risk mitigation and insurance policies for their clients?
Sure.
So maybe let's start with the underwriting questions. That's probably a good place to start.
Yeah, it's funny because as King, you and I know, property policies have been around for 300 years. Cyber policies have been around for 30 at its most generous terms, right? As these applications start to shape and you start to see some of these questions get added to a cyber application, as an agent, I would key in on that. Hey, why are they asking for things like multi-factor authentication or endpoint detection and response? They're asking because these underwriters recognize these are really meaningful tools that help an insurer prevent a cyber claim. Anytime an agent or a broker starts to see new letters, MFA, EDR, XDR, next generation navigation, antivirus, it's these are things that an agent should hone in on and say, hey, there's a reason they're asking for this, and can this help our insured? Listen, everybody wants to find a way to write every risk with no controls, but there's meaning behind these questions the underwriters are asking. They know that they prevent claims.
So I assume any of your agents can reach out to Professor Burns for demystifying some of these terms that we hear so often and sometimes are confusing. And I gather that's part of your role as the wholesale broker.
You know what? That is, and King, this is kudos to the team, Sciata team. This has been the big part of my role. We enable the agents to go out and get the quotes or get indications through this platform. And what my role has become is helping agents understand what's meaningful to an insured and helping them understand the language that these policies are written in and these questions are asked. I've become a real consultant to our agency partners because, getting price tag is not hard right now.
So we've had some earlier conversations, Scott, around claims and how that's driving changes in the market with carriers, and that gets right to things like policy language. So perhaps you could comment on what you're seeing, what trends you're seeing because of claims, the reaction from the carrier community.
Yeah. We saw a ton of this the beginning of last year, and it was a real, with claims shape policies. And as more claims come in, we see certain lines or certain components of a policy shrink down or expand based on whether or not that's what's driving claims activity. Ransomware coverage is a really good example of the market responding to claims activity. What we saw and what we're still seeing some of is ransomware sublimits or a co-insurance clause associated with the ransomware. This is because we do see claims activity, and right now that is what's driving all of these losses. 4 or 5 years ago, we used to see a ton of social engineering claims. I think we're starting to see some of the funds transfer fraud and social engineering language loosen up a little bit because ransomware claims are really the driver of claims in this moment. Not to say I have a magic ball and know where it's going to go, but it's kind of what we're seeing in this moment.
So putting yourself in the shoes of the agent, what are some of the key factors to consider when the client is choosing a cyber insurance policy? So what are the things that client really needs to be aware of, but needs to be guided by the agent when they're talking to their client?
Yeah, sure. If I could spend everybody else's money, I'd always buy the broadest coverage available. But you and I know that pricing is still really a driver of how and which policy gets purchased. This makes it tough for an agent. Hey, and I want to show a very broad option so that we can explain to our insureds what the value is of this coverage versus, say, another carrier who doesn't offer us product coverage, but maybe has a cheaper price point. We're all coverage focused, but I understand that I can't make an insured buy the most expensive or broadest option. Sure, it's absolutely wonderful when the broadest option happens to have the lowest price tag. No brainer for us. But helping our agents understand that there may be some trade-offs from one company to another. That's the role of a broker and a partner at this point. The other things that really drive choice of a policy is for us, it's industry. Some carriers handle certain classes of business better than others. Some carriers, certain components of a cyber policy are more meaningful to other insureds. Closing attorneys and title agents. It's really meaningful to have very broad cyber crime language in that policy because insurance agents as well. You have funds that don't belong to you in an account that you control. Like certain carriers have tough language around that. For us, I would just encourage our agency partners, lean on your expert. It's very difficult to stay up with the ins and outs of all of the changes in the cyber market. But what I'd really encourage is that there is an option for every single insured. We should be and we can be presenting cyber to every commercial risk you have. Again, I just want to stress that the claims are so difficult and so cumbersome for an insured that, for me, I write a lot of insurance agency, I hate seeing E&O claims come through. I just hate it. There's no excuse to have an uncovered cyber claim, assuming an insured wanted this coverage and you didn't present it. That's where we're at. Agents know better at this point. They know of the exposure. I just feel really strongly that they should be offering it.
Terrific input across the board, Scott. Thank you. Would like to just thank you. I can't thank you enough for joining us today and wishing you every continued success at Excess Brokers. So appreciate all your great input. Thanks, Scott.
King, really appreciate the partnership that we have with you and the team.
Thanks for listening to the Siyata Cyber Insurance Podcast. Join us next time for more insights that help you understand and place cyber risk better. If you want to grow your cyber book without the heavy lifting, you need Siyata. Siyata is the online marketplace where you quickly quote and bind cyber from leading markets, all on an easy-to-use digital platform. Go to Siyata.com to learn more. That's SAYATA.com.